Ready?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Karen Fox, and this is my son Jacob Fox. Today we wanted to share with you a little bit about how to be spiritually and physically strong when you're facing trials. Yeah?
Yeah. And a few months ago, we had the unique opportunity to go through a major trial, and that I was serving a mission in the Tennessee Knoxville mission, and on my way to transfers, a member that was driving us had something happen where we were in a very bad car accident, and I had to have multiple surgeries and lots of physical therapy, lots of doctor's appointments, lots of other things like that. And it ultimately resulted in me coming home early from my mission. And it was a really scary time for both of us, and a really unknowing time, I guess you could say. And so we both had a couple questions for each other to be able to discuss what it's like and how each of us dealt with that trial in our own way and from our own perspective. And so a question that I had for you, Mom, is because when I was thinking about it, I thought about you being here in Safford and me being all the way over in Knoxville, and there's not only a time change, but it takes time to get there. And so I thought about that long time when you just knew that something had happened. You didn't know the severity of it, and you didn't know how to deal with it at that point. And so I wanted to ask you, when a trial initially hits, how do you push through and continue on with your life and function in a way, and to be able to get to the end of that trial and see what the result is, and to be able to trust the Lord and all through that?
So it's a good question, because all of us are going to face trials, something at some point. And the good news is we've already been starting that. When you get here as a baby, you start by crying and having faith that somebody's going to come and help you, and that faith is answered, and you take these steps, and as you go, you start to learn. And so I think that's where, with spiritual strength and physical strength and spiritual strength, they both take practice and exercise to get good at it. And I think that the years of preparing and practicing having faith and learning how to turn to the Lord. You'd been gone for 14 months already, 15 months already, and every day I had prayed for you, and that Heavenly Father would take care of you and keep you safe. And so I had practiced praying to Him and expecting Him to take care of you, and knowing that if something bad happened to you on that day, that I had already talked with the Lord about it, and I knew that you were in His hands. So it was part of His plan. And so when this really scary news came, and we had to take that long 3-hour drive to the airport across the res, and then get on an airplane for another 8 hours, it was terrifying. But my heart had been practiced in reaching out to Heavenly Father and accepting and hearing Him the way that He comforts me and what He knew I needed. And so when I was crying out to Him in my heart, I knew how it felt for Him to reach out to me and make me feel more comfortable, and to let me know that this was in His hands, that He loved you, He loved us, and He was taking care of things. And He didn't let me know that you were going to live. He didn't let me know that you were going to be okay. He let me know that it was going to be okay. that no matter what, he had taken care of things, and he comforted me so that we were able to make that trip with peace, even though we were scared. And we knew that something bad had happened, and that wasn't going away, but he comforted us anyway.
I love how you talk about practicing things and being able to be prepared for those hard times. And so before hard times come, what would you say is the best way to practice, trusting the Lord while your life is pretty at peace at the moment?
So I think the primary answers, saying your prayers and learning to reach out in your heart and your mind to your Father in heaven and learn how to hear him back. So when you're saying your prayers, practice actually talking to him and communicating and feeling his communication back. That daily practice gets you in the habit of feeling and hearing him. Reading and studying your scriptures gets you in the habit of understanding how he cares for his people. The scriptures are full of stories of people who had really hard trials, and God was there through it all and took care of them. And so it's not reading about all the perfect things that happen in other people's perfect lives. It's stories of real families facing real difficulties and how the Lord gets us through it and has taken care of it for us. So I think the studying and the praying and daily doing it and reaching out and touching and serving others so that your inclination is toward others. It was amazing how many people reached out and served us during this time that made us feel Heavenly Father's care for us. And so building relationships with people, even when it's hard, it's not my natural inclination to be really social, but by building a social family, here we had such a beautiful community response for us. So the basics, the primary answers are really the answers for life.
Yeah, just like in sports or any other thing that you do, you practice the fundamentals and you do those things over and over again until they become natural to you. And then when the time comes and you really need to put on your game face, that's when it all comes together and you can really understand how you're supposed to go through things.
Right. It's not how you imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully most people won't ever have to go through a trial like that.
How do you prepare for it?
For me,
yeah.
It's really interesting to think about back on, because in the moment, I wasn't scared at all. I woke up. I hit something really hard and then I fell asleep for a while, and I woke up and everybody was surprised that I was awake. But there was never any doubt in my mind that I was going to get better as soon as I woke up. It was just a matter of time. And those 14 months on my mission, I thought I was pretty spiritual beforehand, but on the mission you completely change, just because you are constantly thinking about others. You're constantly pleading with your Heavenly Father every night. There's many times when I just knelt down and I prayed for hours, just trying to understand what was going on, and then I studied. So just like you said, the prayer, study, thinking about others, building relationships with others, you begin to understand in a broader perspective of who you are and who everybody else is. And then once you understand that, the things that come and that are trials, they're not that scary and they're not that big, which it sounds really dumb to say, but because this was a really big and really scary thing. But here we are talking about how neither of us really felt that God didn't love us.
Right. And that, I think, that's the biggest, coming to know God's love in everyday stuff makes you able to do through anything. It doesn't matter what it is.
Right. Being able to have that communication with Heavenly Father, and knowing that He is all powerful, and knowing that if He didn't want you here on the earth, you wouldn't be on the earth. Was something that helped me a lot, was to know that I was needed and wanted here, not that, you know, by some luck and some chance that I was here, but that if Heavenly Father wanted me back home, then I'd be back home. And so that gave me a surety, a peace to know that my trial wasn't for nothing.
So you were able to feel that love and everything, but then once the initial shock, of course, wore off, things really did get hard, and you had to push through it, and things changed, you know, all of a sudden. What did you need to do to push through that change, and what were some of those changes, and how did your preparation of spiritual strengthening and physical exercise and preparation get you ready to deal with those changes that happened?
I think in a spiritual sense, I had been told on my mission, or before my mission, to learn as much as I can and to be able to understand things as deeply as I can. And so that's what I did. I tried to understand everything I possibly could. And it was really cool because on the mission, the Lord somehow is able to test you in ways you never thought, and you study one thing that morning, and then that's pretty much all you talk about for the rest of the day, and that's what people question you about, and that's what people kind of attack your beliefs about. And so you really build a strong, concrete foundation, because you have to understand it from everybody's perspective to be able to talk to them and discuss with them what you really understand about the gospel. And so for me, it was, I had built my testimony, and then it solidified itself every single day. And so when I went into the hospital and I didn't have the energy to read my scriptures or to listen to talks or even to pray, I just did not have the energy. It didn't change the things that I already knew and the things that I understood, but it made me, but I still knew that Heavenly Father still loved me, and I knew that He wanted to hear from me. And so sometimes I counted my thought as a prayer, and I counted my wishes in my heart as a prayer, that I would be able to do things as easily as possible. And for me, that's what it took. And sometimes that's what we can do, giving your best to the Lord, no matter where your best is at for the moment. I know that sounds funny coming from a missionary who was studying and praying pretty much most of their time, to somebody that wasn't studying or praying at all, to count something so minor as qualifying. But the Lord doesn't care. He just wants to hear from us, and He wants to know how we're doing. And if that's what you count as a prayer, then that's what He counts as a prayer.
You know, it's interesting. I wasn't in a car accident. I had no physical trauma or anything, but the emotional and stress trauma was real. And it surprised me how much it affected my mind. I love to read. I always carry a book or something to read. I fascinated. I constantly draw or doodle or sketch or do a project or something, and I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't focus. I was so overwhelmed. And so for the first, I guess, 2 weeks while you were in the ICU, I had habits, and so I'd pull out scriptures, I'd pull out books. I couldn't read. I couldn't understand what was going on, and my mind couldn't focus. And I got a little, panicked feeling, and I got that sense of comfort from the Lord that you do as much as you can with what you have right now, and that was what was needed, and He would carry us the rest of the way. And then, when then as you began to get better, I started doing a little bit more and getting a little farther away and able to think a little bit more. And so the Lord expected more of me.
Right.
And I could feel that. I could feel when I hadn't read my scriptures. But in those first few days, the Lord carried me through that. And I didn't have to feel guilty for that.
Right.
He eased that.
Right. You're never underqualified for the Lord, but you're never overqualified for the Lord's help.
Exactly.
No matter where you are in your testimony or in your beliefs or in your emotional state or in your physical state, the Lord needs you and wants you.
And can fill in every gap,
Right.
whatever that
Exactly.
gap is. Yeah.
So I just like to end by bearing my testimony that I know that the gospel is true, and I know that through study and prayer, and I know that life can be hard sometimes, but when we trust in the Lord and understand that He loves us and understand that He wants us here, then we can truly be the tools and the hands for Him here on the earth. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to take part in. And I know that as you build your sure foundations, that you can truly be a part of that work.
I want to bear my testimony that I know that our Father in heaven lives, that He sent His Son because He loves us, and His Son loves us, and created this place for us to come and learn and grow, and then atone for all the mistakes and all the difficulties that we would face, because how much He loves us, and so that we could return to live with them again. And I'm very grateful for that knowledge and the eventual hope it gives me, but also the blessing of hope and peace and joy right now as I live here. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.